Hello and welcome to Tree Talk. This is our April edition of Tree Talk, and we're going to talk a little bit about buds and blooms, and then we're going to finish up with some of the resources that are available and the programming that's coming up virtually during this COVID-19 crisis. All right, so again, this is Dave Apsley with Ohio State University Extension. I've got Jamie Dahl on the line as well with Central State University Extension. And Jamie will be covering the blooms part, the flowers, and I'm going to spend a little time on some of the trees and what's happening in the woods as we speak. So here's my first picture, and I've got a series of photos for each of these pictures. And so I'm trying to get a little interaction. Actually posted this one on Instagram the other day, asking folks if they know what it is. It's in full bloom right now. It's actually on its way out. And just a few more hints. Here's the bark of this tree, and it was probably about 6 inches around, so quite a bit bigger than a softball. You can see if you look up this tree and the trunk how crooked it is. It's a survivor. It's tried to find the light and work its way into that canopy over time. And if you see here where my arrow is, that's that narrow winding tree that's found its way up to a little sunlight under the shade of this monstrous yellow poplar that's probably about a 30-inch diameter tree. But because an ash tree died over in this part of the woods, it was actually able to get some light, and you can see those blooms are flowering out there now. A lot of people first guess is flowering dogwood, but this tree is much taller than any flowering dogwood I've ever seen. It's a tall, skinny, narrow tree that made it up in the canopy, and that's called a serviceberry. Downy serviceberry is probably the most common one here in Southeast Ohio. Not a real abundant one, but this time of year when you drive through the hills in the native woodlands, not necessarily right on the edges because a lot of that's non-native stuff, but in native woodlands, serviceberry is a pretty common one that you're going to see. Here's a shot, just the landscape, kind of similar to the background I've got, and you see a few trees that are starting to pop with a little color. Got some pines down here, and the bright yellow is probably tulip poplar, but these got a little reddish tint. And as we zoom in a little closer, you might see some hints. Now we ought to be seeing some hints that help people at least get it down to the genus or the group of trees. See the helicopter fruits that are popped? Our soft maples get these fruits this time of year. And this is red maple. There's a little bit closer shot of it. And again, red maple again. Another one that's pretty common, kind of a purplish bloom on the edges in the understory in the woods. As we zoom in a little bit closer, that one is not quite in full bloom here in Jackson, Ohio, but that's our eastern redbud. Took this out the window this morning. Starting to get a little yellow. The other clue, it's got some green twigs here. It's a plant that has green twigs year round. As we zoom in, there are these bright little yellow flowers. That's our sassafras. It's getting ready to pop and flower. But these little balls up in the trees, about the size of a marble. And as we zoom in a little bit, you'll see this little velvety bud on the end and the round buds that are starting to swell. That's our pawpaw that's going to, hopefully, if we don't get too much of a late frost, I hear this morning, or when I looked at the weather, that we might get a frost in the next couple mornings. So hopefully that won't knock the pawpaws out. But these flowers are very interesting. Will turn a dark blood red with a kind of a yellow insert, and they're actually pollinated by flies. Really unique plant. And then, of course, folks that are from Southeast Ohio realize the importance of pawpaw and how it can be used as a crop and a fruit that we can eat. Actually, I think there's some folks at the Ryan, I believe at the South Center's doing some work with pawpaw. So that's the pawpaw and the fruit. Another one, I couldn't get a really good overall tree shot because of the light conditions, but this one I always like to tell the joke of how do you tell a tree or a dogwood tree, and it's by its bark. And if you look at the dogwood bark, it's got this characteristic real blotchy small plates. As we zoom in, those flowers are starting to break, and they're at different stages of development depending on where you are in the state, and even on my property, depending on if it's in the sun or in a shaded location or whatever. But that flower, actually the flower is the inner part. These are what we call leafy bracts, the white things that'll expand into the dogwood. I took this shot yesterday morning when after a heavy rain, and you can see they're starting. Some of them are getting pretty far along. This one was taken this morning. So that's our flowering dogwood, real common edge species that we're going to see here in Southeast Ohio. And then finally, my last tree that I want to spend a little bit of time on is this one. The buds are really swelling. I've actually got 3 species of this tree in my woods, different types, and I'll tell you a little bit more without giving it away here. But big buds, you can see the buds are paired or opposite from one another. So that narrows it down. I got Duane on the screen if he remembers the mad buck that we talked about. The M stands for maple, the A stands for ash, the D is dogwood, and then the buck is buckeye. So mad buck, this is actually our Ohio buckeye. I've got 2 other buckeyes planted on the property. One is a native yellow buckeye, which is pretty common here in the southeastern part of the state. And then I've got red buckeye, or it's a Aesculus pallida, and it is a red buckeye it's native to the south of here. And it's got red spiked fruits on it. So I'm really anxious to see the red buckeye when it gets ready to flower here shortly. So those are my trees, just an update. We've got some trees that are completely breaking bud and the foliage is showing like the buckeye here. Other trees, as I look out my window and see the wind blowing the trees around, like the oaks, haven't even started to break bud. So some trees are more driven by the temperature and the conditions we're in. Others are driven more by the light, the day length, or what we call the photo period. So some things won't leaf out till much later, things like oak. And you'll find out that that's a strategy. By leafing out later, it gives some plants an advantage, and then they're not as exposed to late frost and such. So that's just my overview of what's happening with some of the trees in the woods. And we're going to take a little break and turn it over to Jamie Dahl here in just a second. Thanks, and have a great day.
Hi, you all. Welcome to Tree Talk. I'm Jamie Dahl with Central State University and here with Dave Apsley with Ohio State University. And of course, we both work with Cooperative Extension, and we're just doing some quick bits about what we're seeing out in the woods. So, of course, you may have caught Dave talking some about the overstory, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening lower in the forest floor. And so there are some nice spring wildflowers that are starting to pop. And the first one that we have here on the screen is Bloodroot. So I was actually doing some hiking just near Zaleski, and happened to see the Bloodroot in a pretty dry upland area, but then there were also some rich woods nearby. So this is, you see the white kind of showy flower, and then there is deep lobes and on that kind of leaf, that pretty distinct leaf with the lobes there and kind of deep sinuses. Another interesting thing about Bloodroot is it has within the stem, if you break it, it has a real red coloring, and that was actually used for red dye and has some medicinal treatments related to asthmas and fever and that sort of thing. So just something to look for if you get a chance to do a little hiking. And of course, what I'm going through here is really some of these quick spring flowers, so spring ephemerals. So something to notice is they may not be around long. They show off quick and then disappear, and they're enjoying that sunlight before the trees fully leaf out. So next one to talk about quick is rue anemone, and this is another kind of a small flower. You can see there by the scale a little bit as I'm standing and taking the picture, and I tried to zoom in on that closer picture. You can see has a distinct leaf that's in threes, but you notice also that there's those 3 lobes, and that is characteristic of an anemone. A little tricky one to say there. So just something else that you might be able to watch for out there on the forest floor right now. This one can also be kind of in a range of floodplain to dry upland. These flowers that I'm showing right now can be found statewide if in the right habitats. And then this one also has some interesting medicinal purposes. Native Americans were known to use it for to help remedy diarrhea and vomiting. So I think it's kind of fun to identify a few of these things and then read a little bit about them. So, and then another one to highlight, and I love this picture too, is just kind of neat with the oak leaf litter and the moss. But this is, there's actually two flowers in that picture. So you can maybe point out that the white one is that rue anemone again, and then the purplish one is hepatica. And the leaf is really hidden in the hepatica right now because it's a basal leaf and it's not showing up there. But this is another one that can be kind of found throughout Ohio if in the right habitats. And interestingly, this one also is really important to some of the early insects. So early flowers are necessary for some of the first insects that are popping. So just a reminder that everything going on in the woods is connected. These flowers, their timing is related to what's going on in the canopy, and then some of our first forms of life coming out are relying on these flowers. So so another one that you can watch for. And then I just thought I'd share how you all can go about this, because I am not a wildflower expert. I just enjoy I take my smartphone with me hiking with my family. I love to take nice pictures of the flowers and then go back and identify some. So some fabulous resources. ODNR has a couple places where they have some nice wildflower resources. So Division of Natural Areas and Preserves, on their site, if you search Ohio wildflowers, they have some posts where they sometimes tell you exactly what is popping at certain times and show pictures. They also do some of that on their social media. And then Division of Wildlife has a really nice guidebook. They have, of course, all kinds of guidebooks, but they have one on spring wildflowers, and you can download the PDF. And if you click forward, Dave, this is an example of what you get when you do that. And so it's really nice. It shows kind of when you might see it, just a little bit about the description, a nice picture, talks about the distribution. And then I think the notes are really fun to kind of take a look at, just a little bit more about the plant. And I think with children especially, it can be kind of neat to share some of that information.
So Jamie, I know these are beautiful printed guides, but are they downloadable on the site too?
Yep. So
Awesome.
so I just pulled this, and like I don't even have the printout with me right now. I just was looking at the PDF online. Yep.
Good.
So it's all there for you.
Yeah. So during this time where you normally might be able to pick these up at a Division of Wildlife office, or you can actually order them through their website, you may not be able to get the hard copies, so you might need to rely on the downloadable versions.
Yep, absolutely. So, and then I thought just another fun, so, with all the things going on in our lives right now, I know for me, I basically told my family they were going hiking on Saturday. I thought it'd be good for everybody. And my 7-year-old sometimes protests hiking, but he was the one to spot in this puddle all these tadpoles. And I don't think Mom and Dad would have spotted it, but this was the highlight of the hike for him. So just a reminder, get out there and, let your little people do some exploring, because sometimes they find things that the rest of us aren't looking for. And so he could have stayed at that puddle probably for an hour, but so other parts of the forest that are coming to life. And with that, I thought I would just share this last slide that is just a reminder about Project Learning Tree. And it shows some of the resources. So if you have seen any of our PLT stuff before, just head on out to Project Learning Tree. You can even just search it on the internet and search family activities. But there are free, ready to go activities if you're not sure what to do in nature with your kids. It'll give you some tips, and there's some for if you're in the woods, but there's also some for if you're at a park or just in your backyard. So something that you all might want to check out in this time. And with that, I think we're going to transition to some resources and some up and coming events, but thanks for talking with us about what's going on in the forest.
So, welcome back to Tree Talk, our April edition. We just got done talking to you about some of the buds that are breaking on the trees, and Jamie talked to you about the understory plants and the flowers that we're starting to see here in April. But I also wanted to share some of the things that are available to you as far as resources. The u.osu.edu/Southeast Ohio Woods site is where we're going to visit here in a little bit to give you some updates on our Day in the Woods program and some of the other upcoming activities that we've got going. Also wanted to share a link to our Tree Talk videos. It's a little complicated to go online and find our YouTube videos through Tree Talk. So we created a Go link, and if you do go.osu.edu/tree talk, that'll take you to a list of the videos that we've got out there. I believe there's 51 of those that are available from the last several years. And then finally, the go.osu.edu/tick videos will take you to a link where you'll find hot links to 3 videos on ticks. We had Marcus McCartney out of Washington County talk about his personal experience with ticks. And then Tim McDermott, who is up in Franklin County with Extension, is a doctor of veterinary medicine. So he gave us some nice short clips on how to protect yourself from ticks and what to do if you get a tick as far as tick removal and some other helpful hints. So I'm going to transition here to our webpage. Okay, so now we're going to visit our Southeast Ohio Woods webpage. Some of the things that are new and upcoming is we just posted our brochure virtually. Unfortunately, we can't use the current print shops that we've always done, and we don't have ways to distribute those. So we've posted the Day in the Woods brochures virtually, and that should be the first thing you see when you go to Southeast Ohio Woods. And if you go and click, it'll actually pull up a detailed brochure with all the information that you're looking for on the second page here. So as we get into May and June, we've had to transition a little bit due to the COVID virus. We are not allowed to do in-person programming until July 6th currently, and that could change, but hopefully by our July program, we'll be back to a normal schedule. But in May, we're actually going to do our first Day in the Woods program this year virtually, and we're going to call it Keeping Yourself and Your Woodlands Healthy. So we've got 4 one-hour video slots that we're going to have webinars, and more details will be available as we get closer to the date. We're going to start out with spring migrating birds with Matt Schumer from OSU and Laura Kearns from Division of Wildlife. Just give you a pointer on some of the songbirds that might be migrating through, where you might find them, and what to look for. Then Gerald Bardick from the Forest Service and NRCS is going to talk about some of the health benefits of getting out in the woods. And there's nothing more important right now than to just get out in the woods and just absorb and spend some time out there to just decompress and de-stress and get some fresh air. So Gerald's going to talk about some of those health benefits at 11. At 1 p.m., we're going to have part 1 of our series, Keeping the Woods Healthy. And we don't have all the details worked out, but we're looking at having 3 or 4 things that you can do in the woods, little 15-minute snippets on some advice on, for instance, how to go out and walk your boundary and what to look for, or maybe go check your trails out and see if you've had any damage or erosion over the winter, and some of the other things you might go out and scout for and look for, like some of the invasive plants. So stay tuned, more details to come on that one. And then in June, we're going to do Tree ID virtually. So we'll bring in some guest speakers to help with that. And we've twisted that a little bit, and we'll maybe focus more on the websites and things that you can do to assist, and probably pull in some short videos and photography to help with that. And then hopefully the rest of the Day in the Woods program will be back to normal when we get to that point. So the brochure is downloadable. You click on this link. There's a flyer for our Family Day in the Woods program that's going to take place in September that is intended to be printed and inserted into the brochure. Jamie, you want to mention anything about the Family Day while we're there?
Sure, yeah, just anybody you may be pretty familiar with the Day in the Woods, but Family Day is a little bit of a newer addition, so this will be the third time that we're offering our Family Day. That one is actually a free event, so and you don't have to have kids to come to Family Day, so from all ages will benefit. We end up usually with quite a few partners who show up for that one. Lots of really interactive stuff for the whole family to do. And it's just a great reason to get out into the woods and get some education about what's happening out there. And we hope that we see some of you all at that event in September.
The next post that's on the site, and this site's pretty user friendly. You can actually go to search, and if you type in, say, ticks here, if you wanted to find the tick videos or Day in the Woods or brochure, it's pretty searchable. The other thing I want to mention is that you can actually follow the site, and I'm trying to find that link on here. But you can actually subscribe right here, click on that, and anytime we update that site, you'll receive an email, so you'll know what's going on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is back on April 6th, Monday, we did a series of videos as part of OSU Extension's Ag and Natural Resources Madness. My new boss, Sam Custard, is a big fan of March Madness, and I'm frankly having some withdrawal symptoms, not being able to watch any basketball right now. So Sam's idea was to have a series of programs daily, 9, noon, and 3 p.m. on different topics. And Monday was our forestry bracket. So we did these 3 topics. They were 45-minute long to an hour sessions with PowerPoint presentations. We did one on thinking about selling timber. We also did one on the future of oak is in our hands. And then Jamie wrapped up with Ohio Family Forest, just talking about some of the things that the characteristics of family forest and reasons people own and manage their forest land. So again, if you go to the blog site, the second post down from a couple days ago are links to those videos. And then finally, I'll let Jamie take over from this point about an event that they've got coming up for the Women Owning Woodlands program.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Well, and I'll give a quick plug for just Women Owning Woodlands in general. If you haven't heard about it, we have some programming that's really targeted towards women landowners. And it includes enthusiasts, also women professionals. Everybody's welcome. So men can certainly come to our programming. It's just that we really focus the kind of marketing and messaging towards women. So anyway, we've been doing programs for right around a year at this point in Ohio. And of course, we're having to move to the webinar approach as well. But we have one coming up this month, actually on Earth Day. And it's tree care and planting tips. And it's coming from Ann Bonner, who works for the ODNR Division of Forestry. And she is actually an urban forester. But these tips are going to be for anybody, whether it's backyard version or your woods version. So I think what's neat about it is it really relates. If you have trees in your community, it really relates to everybody. So we'll be talking about some of that. And there is a link. It'd be best if you're interested, just shoot me an email that's on the blog site, and we'll get you the information for how to join. And then stay tuned for more Women Owning Woodlands programming this summer. Also, just a quick plug, we have the Southeast Ohio chapter. There is actually now a Northeast Ohio chapter. So let me know, and I can try to connect you with the person that's running that if that's of interest. So that's Women Owning Woodlands.
Sorry about that, Jamie. There's a link here to the brochure for that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
And it seems like there was one other activity I wanted to talk about. No, that should be plenty. If you'll just go to the site, spend a little time there. We try to post updates pretty regularly there. We don't like to overwhelm people, but once a week or so, we'll post different activities here. So again, visit Southeast Ohio Woods. It's u.osu.edu/Southeast Ohio Woods. And with that, I'm going to switch my screen share to one last slide just to give you our my contact information. I apologize. I thought I had Jamie's on here too. But if you need to get a hold of either me or Jamie, we've got that available for you as well.
And if you go to Dave's blog site, some of that's on there too, if you can't find one of us. But
so don't hesitate. We're working. We do work for OSU Extension. We're working regularly. And we can be reached by email or by phone. Don't hesitate to call. We're on Zoom a lot, so we may not be able to pick up right away, but we'll certainly do our best to get back with you and keep in touch. Enjoy your time out there in the woods. It's a great time. We don't have the commute time that we have normally, so should have some opportunities to go out and spend a little bit more time in the woods.